This is the download from Sounds Profitable, the most important news from this week and why it matters to people in the business of podcasting. I'm Manuela Correa.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis.
The download is brought to you by Podscribe. Find out more at podscribe.com.
This week, how many podcast ads the cost of a 30-second Super Bowl spot could buy, the Trade Desk to lowball SSP floor prices, accreditation for Black-owned publishers, more than a third of marketers will increase their spend in brand this year, and Netflix's biggest threat isn't Hollywood, it's YouTube. Let's get started.
This Tuesday from Kimiko McCoy at Digiday. Just in case anyone has $7 million burning a hole in their pocket but didn't buy a 30-second ad spot at the Super Bowl, Digiday has done the math for what you could buy elsewhere. With that kind of cash, you could get 10 million clicks in Candy Crush, 2.8 million clicks on ItFeed TikTok ads, or 43.4 million clicks on Walmart Connect. For a podcasting perspective, we asked AdvertiseCast CRO Dave Henley how far that might go in podcasting. Here's what he said. Podcast advertising is a powerful, trusted medium that combines influential host endorsements with a growing, highly engaged audience. A $7 million investment in podcast ads at the current average CPM published by Libsyn's AdvertiseCast Marketplace will deliver an advertiser over 300 million host-read, 60-second ad impressions on podcasts. Moreover, a Sounds Profitable study found that an impressive 68% of consumers are more willing to consider a product they heard about on a podcast ad. End quote. Henley points out to audiences shifting away from linear TV, with significant subsets of younger demographics becoming unreachable by traditional broadcast methods. Meanwhile, podcast remains a largely untapped, high-potential medium with excellent audience engagement. Dave also says, with the availability of sophisticated audience-based targeting and attribution measurement, advertisers can leverage the expanding opportunities in podcast advertising to achieve their brand goals, be it direct response or brand awareness, with minimal waste in ad spending. End quote.
From Digiday's WTF Is Explainer series, Sarah Guaglione has published WTF is Accreditation for Black-owned Publications. One side effect of the 2020 flood of agencies pledging to commit a percentage of investments to minority-owned publishers has been the rise of the accreditation processes that verify said publishers are actually minority-owned. One such organization that provides accreditation is the National Minority Supplier Development Council, or NMSDC. While the Digiday piece looks into the broad strokes of accreditation for publishers, we went to DCP Entertainment CEO Chris Colbert to get a podcasting perspective on becoming NMSDC certified. While not free, the process with the NMSDC specifically is charged on a sliding scale based on revenue. Companies making less than $1 million USD in annual revenue pay $400 for the certification process. The application and certification process is fairly intense on the paperwork side, according to Colbert, but the accreditor provided support services like monthly group sessions walking new applicants through the process, as well as quick support responses via email. A quote from Colbert, quote, "We're just scratching the surface of the benefits, but the NMSDC has relationships with a multitude of organizations, where one of the first events I attended featured Paramount, AMC, A&E, and other media companies telling us how we can win their business. Also, as I've alerted other companies of our NMSDC status, it has opened up doors for contracting and subcontracting work, as many major companies have initiatives to spend a certain amount of money with minority-owned businesses each year, and having the certification makes it easy for them to represent that they are following through on those initiatives."
This week from AdExchanger. To counteract supply-side platforms tagging on their own costs on top of a publisher's minimum asking price, the Trade Desk has announced it will start undercutting SSP price floors in its bids. The Trade Desk argument is that the existing SSP prices are not reflecting the real value of the ad impressions. To get a podcasting perspective, we spoke to Rocky Thomas, Chief Revenue Officer at SoundStack. Here's what she said. While this could work for the top 3 podcast networks, it will negatively impact the emerging podcast programmatic advertising space, as it will limit monetization channels for the rest of the podcast space, particularly the independent creator whose programmatic revenue depends on working with large marketplaces. There are hundreds of quality podcast networks that are not large enough to pay or manage the needed technology stacks. End quote. Thomas goes on to say that undercutting audio SSPs and marketplaces trying to grow and better serve podcasters will likely experience the opposite effect than it is intended by the Trade Desk pricing change.
According to new WARC data, the percentage of respondents who focus on growing brand over performance has increased 13% since 2022, with a projected 5% increase in 2024. To give some insight into this for the world of podcasting, we spoke to Cumulus Media Chief Insights Officer Pierre Bouvard. Quote, WARC's report that markets will be increasing brand spend is huge news for podcasting. Brand building is being known before you're needed. Brand campaigns create future demand. Dentsu's recent attentiveness study with Lumen found audio ads outperform video for attention and brand recall. With over 50% of adults aged 18 to 49 listening to podcasts monthly, marketers looking to build their brand should look no further than podcasting and AM/FM radio. End quote. A key best practice Bouvard recommends is not making the mistake of measuring podcast brand campaigns with an attribution study that tracks website traffic. Quote, measure your podcast brand campaign with a brand effect study that quantifies awareness, consideration, brand favorability, and purchase intent. End quote.
Last Thursday from Entertainment Strategy Guy, writing for The Ankler. Despite previous narratives proposing Netflix was most challenged by old guard Hollywood studios, a certain free video platform is proving to be the real challenger. According to Nielsen's The Gauge, a monthly usage tracker of major streamers, YouTube has had at least a 1% market share lead on Netflix every month last year. It's a free platform with over 100 million paid subscribers, taking a bite out of connected TV by acquiring live TV and sports programming while also making space for podcasting. According to YouTube, the number of creators who get the majority of their watch time from CTV screens has increased 400% since 2020, which puts podcasting in an advantageous position, given our biggest platform for discovery also happens to be one of the biggest video platforms overall.
Finally, it's time for our quick hits. These are articles that didn't quite make the cut for today's episode, but they're still worth included in your weekend reading. This week, reintroducing podcasting with Tom Webster. The upcoming Sound Summit at South by Southwest, an official day for podcasting, will act as a way for podcasting to reintroduce itself to brands and agencies that might have only encountered us during an ad tech infancy years ago. Spotify reports fourth quarter 2023 earnings. Paid subscribers are up, raising 1 million over guidance numbers. The company expects their podcasting arm to turn a profit by the end of the year. Podcast benchmarking. How did your downloads compare in 2023 by Sharon Taylor? The Omni Studio benchmarks of what counts as good download numbers for a podcast have been divided into percentiles and different regions. And finally, the art of podcasting with Joe Rogan and his new multi-year Spotify partnership from Spotify. The Joe Rogan Experience has renewed its contract with Spotify for hosting and distribution, but the former exclusive has now returned to open RSS distribution.
And that was The Download, brought to you by Sounds Profitable. I know we went through today's stories fast, so be sure to check out the links to every article mentioned, right in your podcast listening app or on soundsprofitable.com/podcast. And thank you for sticking with us as we bring you the top stories you might have missed from the past week. I'm Manuela Correa.
And I'm Gavin Gaddis. Our producers are Brian Barletta, myself, and Tom Webster. Special thanks to Spreaker for hosting The Download, and thanks to you for joining us. Robot.
Download complete.